Hi guys, Sandy Ingram here. Welcome. We have a major subject to discuss today. The subject is why the U.S. still controls Iraq's dollar pipeline. Now, for many people, Iraq's economy appears pretty simple. The country sells oil, earns billions in revenue, and uses that money to fund its government and imports. But behind the scenes, the financial structure that gives the United States enormous influence over Iraq's access to its own money, many people do not yet understand why. Understanding this system is essential for anyone watching the Iraqi dinar or Iraq's currency, banking reforms, or the economic future of Iraq. Iraq's oil is priced and sold internationally in U.S. dollars. When buyers pay for Iraqi crude, these dollars do not flow directly into Iraq's banks inside the country, inside of Iraq. Instead, they are deposited into an account belonging to the Central Bank of Iraq, but held at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Now, this arrangement dates back to the early 2000s, following the U.S.-led invasion. At the time, international stakeholders wanted a secure, transparent way to manage Iraq's oil income, prevent corruption, and reassure creditors that funds would be used for legitimate national purposes. Now, while the account legally belongs to Iraq, the reality is that any movement of these funds must pass through the U.S. financial system. Now, what this means is money transfers are screened for sanctions, compliance, anti-money-laundering controls, and counter-terrorism financial rules. In other words, Iraq can request access to its dollars, but it cannot move them freely without meeting U.S. regulatory standards. Now, at this point, you're probably asking, what the hell? And why is that? The structure gives Washington indirect but significant leverage over Iraq's financial flows, financial income. If the United States believes Iraq's banks are facilitating illicit transfers, sending funds to sanctioned entities, or failing compliance checks, the United States can slow, block, or restrict access to dollar transactions. That risk alone is enough to shape Iraq's financial policy, because Iraq's economy depends heavily on imports priced in dollars. Everything from food and medicine to technology and infrastructure equipment. The influence of this system became visible in recent years, more visible in recent years, when U.S. authorities required Iraq to tighten controls on its currency auction system. Remember the currency auction? Iraq's banks were forced to submit stronger documentation for trade invoices and foreign transfers, and institutions suspected of violating the U.S. currency laws. The U.S. is holding their purse strings. And this is no small amount, guys. We're talking about over 100 billion U.S. dollars. Iraq is a little bit wealthy. Because of this dependency, Iraq's monetary, economic foundation is only, or its sovereignty is only partial. The central bank can set domestic policies, manage interest rates, and regulate local banks. But its primary source of foreign currency, oil dollars, remains tied to the United States oversight. Iran keeps whispering in Iraq's ears that they're not free, that they're not in control. They need to have control over their 100 billion US dollars. Now, that may or may not be true, but stay with me because I'm going to tell you one of the real reasons that all of Iraq's money is at the Federal Reserve Bank in New York City. Still, the reality remains Iraq doesn't like it and Iran dislikes it even more. But here's what you got to understand. Iraq had a leader who went and attacked its neighbors, Kuwait. And before that, Iraq was doing things that just wasn't good for his own people, for the country. He was just acting like Iran is acting now in terminating the lives of the protesters. Anyway, the United States went over there and tuned him up a little bit. But the United States called all the other nations together and said, we want everyone to be a part of this. So come with us to Iraq. And all of these other countries said, okay, no problem. But when the conflict was over and the other nations saw how truly wealthy Iraq was or is, some of these nations said, we want our money. We want money because we came and helped you and rescued you from your leader, Saddam. They were in the process of going to sue Iraq because they had volunteered to go to Iraq to smooth out some issues. The United States said, oh, no. You cannot sue Iraq. And part of making sure that nobody tried to sue Iraq or blackmail them or strong-arm them or do anything to them, the U.S. put the money in the U.S. Federal Reserve. Now, there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of talk. But that's the main thing that the U.S. has done for Iraq.